What is up, guys? It's Verns, back here again with another Supercoach video. This time it is the NBL Round 14 review. Not a bad week from us. It's not a weekly winner, but that's alright. We put out 298, went up one position overall to 108. Look, honestly, we didn't really prep for this round. We only had two people on the double playing in Galloway and Adams. Look, we dodged a few bullets. Miller obviously put out a really poor score. Shout out to the ladies' man himself, Corey Blackledge. Me and him had our head-to-head in one of my YouTube leagues this week, and honestly, I thought I was done and dusted, and then he went ahead and he commentated, cursed himself. He was like, I only really lose this if Lamb goes like 50 plus in your game, drops like a 52, and unlucky for him, Bolden didn't score a single point in that final quarter, and I got over him by 5. So, look, unfortunate there, Corey. It was a tight one, and I really didn't think I was getting over the line. Me and him were messaging, and I was like, look, I've lost this week. Congrats, man. You obviously got me. But then it just didn't pan out that way, and somehow I got on top of him. So, really unfortunate there, mate. And that's just how Supercoach is sometimes. Sometimes your player shows up and doesn't score a single point in the quarter. Other times they just pop off, and yeah, you just got to reap the rewards when it happens. But we'll jump into the team. We'll see how it's all going. Just quickly, before we do jump into that team though, guys, I would just like to give a huge shout out to all of you. Like, if you didn't notice already, or you don't follow me on my X, which you can, at Verns_SC on, as I mentioned, X. It's usually in the description, so jump down and just copy and paste it from there if you want to go ahead and follow along. But I did make an announcement that we hit 200 subs. I should have had it in the last video, but I was way too hyped about the weekly win. But honestly, 200 subs is awesome. You know, it's a mini milestone for me. I say mini milestone, it's a milestone for me. You know, I just came out making these videos because I just wanted to make YouTube content. I wanted to be part of the community. I wanted to be involved. And look, we've hit 200 subs, and it's been a big growth throughout this NBL content specifically. I was probably only a bit over 100 subs over 2 years of doing AFL, saying that didn't have any, social media or anything. I just put my videos out each week. But look, we put out the social media. We've been active in the community. We've made like 100 subs over this NBL journey, and hitting 200 is awesome. Obviously, we set that milestone with DR when we did the podcast with DR, and it's awesome to see us hit that. So thank you so much to you guys for honestly subbing, but not just subbing, being here each and every week. Even if you don't stay for the whole video, I appreciate you popping in, just seeing me for 5 minutes, and then going on and doing your day. I very much appreciate that. So a huge shout out to you. As I said, special shout out to those that do stick around to the end. You always know that you get that shout out at the end for being there. So I appreciate that. And all those that do communicate with me. I love seeing the comments down below. We always see Toilet down there. We see Matthew down there. We always talk to Corey, the ladies' man, on X. So I really appreciate, you know who you are. I obviously didn't include everyone there, but you know who you are, and just honestly, thank you so much for, just being there for my journey. I'm really enjoying it. I'm enjoying this interaction with each and every one of you, and it's awesome to hit 200 subs. So yeah, thank you guys, and anyway, I'll get onto the team and let you enjoy the rest of the video. Okay, so we're jumping into the team, guys. I had to do a quick little chop and change there as my trade still hadn't been reversed from what I did. But as you can see, we only had Adams and Galloway on field. Adams was our captain, and he wasn't even our most high-scoring player. Our high-scoring player was Lamb, sitting on the bench, unfortunately. Bringing in Froling, though, did give great dividends, though. Just 45 points from him. We knew Williams out would be a really good score, and that was sort of expected. Galloway, I was surprised he only got 18 in that second game. He started off like a house on fire, and he had some... I guess he didn't really do too much throughout the middle and the end of the game, unfortunately. So, we ended up on 18 points both game, 36. We're not too unhappy with that. That's a premium score for someone on their single week. Not really Lamb or Froling. That is unders for them. Humphrey 23, that's fine. We take that. McCall 35, we take that as an on-field score. I didn't see Kel's 39 coming, but he was looking towards a triple-double again, which was pretty nuts. Adams 43, the 9 in the first game hurt. We're really hoping for a big second game to bounce back. 34 in the second game. It's not huge, unfortunately. He was very close to that double-double. There was actually 2 times in this game that he fed someone and they missed the layup, and that was the difference between not only an extra 4 points, the 5 points for the double-double, and then he's looking at like a 52, and we're feeling pretty good about that outcome. But he matched JLA scores for the people that did try and bring in JLA for a single big week. Not really that good, but I mean, if you compare it to Humphrey, yes, but you're obviously hoping for a much bigger score than what you got, so very unfortunate there. Air, I thought was going to be having a big game with Brown out as well, but look, he had a few turnovers at the end, and he missed a few layups when he beat people off the dribble. He got to the rack and he just didn't finish, which was a bit unfortunate. Probably could have been pushing like a 20 plus if he just scored a few extra baskets and was a bit cleaner with the ball at the end, but it is what it is. I think the most disappointing thing about this round is something that I was contemplating was boosting Qual, as you guys know from the last video, but then I looked at his break even and went, oh, that's not bad. Then we heard the news of Williams and stuff out and DJ Hogue not playing, so I brought Froling in without boosting, and I did actually look at this and I was considering Froling or Clark. I'm like, they're both good under-basket scorers with no rim protectors here. There's a great chance they're going to have massive games. I'm probably going to put my money in Froling to have a bit of a bigger game, but I wouldn't be surprised if Clark went massive too. And I think in my head I kind of forgot that I could boost because I'd already made the conclusion I'm not boosting this week. Because I'd already put that in my head, I didn't think... I guess I just didn't proactively think that, hey, I think Clark and Froling are going massive this week. Let's make the proactive move. In reality, Clark had a 25 break even, Qual had a 13. For them to match money-wise, Clark just had to outscore Qual by 12, which in my eyes, he was probably going 35 to 40. Is Qual going 23 to 28? I honestly wouldn't have put him for that amount. So I think that's the logic I needed to use when making this decision. And I think if hindsight's obviously 2020, but I think using that logic, if I'd used that last week, I would have made the proactive and correct decision to boost Clark in and bank an extra 12 points, which would have been very nice. And it would have seen us slipping into the top 100. Now look, something else. Actually, you know what? I'll do that later on. I'll make sure to add that in at the end of the recording, edit it in before this segment. Y'all will know what it is by this point. It'll probably just be my YouTube shout out for hitting 200 subs, which is super sick. Sounded like I should have shouted that last week, but obviously didn't. Anyway, I'll do that later. So yeah, good score from Menenga too. He earned some cash, which was really nice. I always like sometimes clicking on the list and looking at just the money in this situation. 14k is nice. You know what, Galloway, you do your thing. Humphrey made some good money. McCall kept his break even, which is good. Adams lost a lot of money, which hurts. Lamb made some good bank, and coming into his good schedule, people are going to be wanting to get on him real bad this week because his break even's probably really good. And if you don't get on him, it's just not plausible. 66 break even, that's actually a lot lower than I thought it was, but with as good as he is, he will probably beat that. He was obviously on a double, so the 66 is with a double, so 33 a game. Qual only the 2k, Menenga 22. Kel went up 35. What a massive game from Kel as well. That was so good. And the annoying thing here is Clark ended up going up like 15k, so we ended up not making money and not making points on this play. So being, I guess, reactive rather than proactive was not the play this week. I thought maybe waiting a week would be better, but I always had in my mind that I was getting Gary Clark, so this always should have been the play that I made last week. Would have had an extra, I would have had 30k left in the kitty rather than 16, so a bit painful that I did that to myself. So that is trade 1, Clark straight into our team. Trade 2, this is where it's getting iffy. I do want to be moving on air. Someone I was eyeing off was Shannon Scott. I really wanted him, but he only came out with 19, which, look, that's not a great score in reality. Like, I really wanted a bit more from him, but at the same time, it did keep him nice and cheap because he had a nice low break even. And I think the other thing with Shannon Scott here is, if you're getting 19 points a game, it's not the end of the world. Especially on a double, like that's going to be more than a premium. We know what he can do as well. There's a chance that not only puts out 19, he could come out for a much larger score. The only other consideration here is maybe going for like a Robinson, who's got a bit of a better schedule going forward. But I think Scott could probably match Robertson over the next 2 weeks, but at almost 100k discount. And if he matches him, by the time those 2 weeks end, there's not going to be too much of a price gap between them, that if I move to Robertson after that, it should be pretty easy. So I'm going to jump on Shannon Scott nice and early here, as Brisbane do have double-doubles this week. So just for our targets, guys, we have Brisbane on the double-double, we have Adelaide on a double-double, we have Illawarra now starts their massive run of 5 doubles in 6 rounds, so Illawarra, we want to be on those guys. So they're the players we're looking at. They're the three teams that we want to focus. We want to focus. I know New Zealand have a double this week, but then they have a single before another double, before another single, before two doubles to end. So New Zealand aren't top priority right now. Numero uno is getting on these Illawarra players, but if you have the ability to maybe jump on a Brisbane or Adelaide player, it's not too bad. Saying that, I'm really not a fan of the Adelaide options. We've seen it the last few weeks. They're very yin-yang and they can burn you quite hard. So I think I'm going to steer clear of any more Adelaide players. I think I'm happy with the two I've got. Brisbane, I don't know if I want to go back to the well with Sobey. That sounds painful, and I just don't think I want to do it. So I'm probably not going back to the well with Sobey, but I'll bring in Shannon Scott, who, as I said, I think is value at his price. Then the next one, look, Pidgeotto came out with another good game. For those that watch Inside Fantasy Sport, you know who I'm talking about. It is Lockie Aldridge. 3 games in a row where he's put out some good numbers. He's made some good cash, but now he's at the point where he's quite expensive. If we do just jump over to the player list at this point, as I said, we're going to filter for those 3 teams because they're the high priority teams here. We can probably look at 3-round average because Pidgeotto is going to jump right up, I think. Not quite as high as I thought he was. There he is. Lockie Aldridge, 21 points again. He's had a good 3 rounds, but were these all on the single? I think one of these was on the double, but he's still been performing quite well, but he's at quite an expensive price now, and I just don't think I want to go back to the well with Lockie Aldridge. It just ain't me. I gotta be honest, ain't doing it. So we're just going to jump to the averages. We've already got Froling and Clark in. Sobey's a yin-yang, so he can be very rough to own because sometimes he'll come out and put out these 17, 19s, and other times he can come out with these 37, 40 points, and it's very nice. He is very score-reliant, though, so when he's not shooting hot, it's very painful. He's also a very pretty penny right now, so not someone I'm going to pay up for. DJ 3J, as I said, I don't want to go to these Adelaide players that are very versatile. 3J, same boat as Sobey. He can have these lower games. He relies heavily on scoring. When he doesn't score super coach, but when he does score points, we get this like 37 from him. So very yin-yang in his scoring, and he could be a big difference for somebody winning a weekly just because he's gone massive on the 1 week they had him on field, but he could also be a big reason for a points or an overall drop if he comes out with a poor one. So look, I'm going to avoid both of those. As I mentioned, they're both quite expensive. And this is where it gets hard because I look at the rest of these players and I've already got the players I want from these teams. I don't really want any more Illawarra. I don't really want the Brisbane players. I don't want Adelaide players. The only thing I'm looking at here is, as I said, Robinson. In reality, when you're playing 11 games over the next 5 weeks, you compare that to someone who plays for Southeast Melbourne, plays for Brisbane, plays for Perth. They only have like 2 more doubles for the rest of the year, so they're going to play, I think, 8 games compared to his 11, and then you got to compare the averages there. When we're playing for overall, if we're holding them for the rest of the season, he has 3 more games to make more points. Like, it's going to be much better to probably have him over that stretch than having someone that's only going to be playing 8 games, as I mentioned. Break even 48. Look, he probably doesn't even meet that, let's be honest, but as I said, it'd be nice just to have him sitting on the bench making decent points over this period of time. I think that's just how it is. The annoying thing is, if I want to be bringing him in and chucking him on the bench, I don't quite have the funds to get straight to him. I also would have to force Froling onto my center position if I go Menenga. So the only one I'm really looking at there is McCall, but McCall over the next 2 weeks has 3 games. Robinson has 4 games. I wouldn't be surprised if over 4 games he puts out 80 points, 20-point average. McCall could do that in 1 double. Like, I think in 3 games he puts out 30-point average, 90 at minimum, and I think McCall's going to be better over these next 3 games. So I'm not going to move McCall down to him. It sort of puts me in this position where I think I'm holding my boost again. And I guess that's the only thing. If I did boost last week, I don't really know if I'd be making a second trade because I just don't really have anything to do with that. I want to look at Menenga's break-even. It is still at 4. He's still going to be making bank, so I can really just have him sitting there, accruing cash, scoring good points as a bench player in the center position, and then maybe we can move him on next week. Next week, Perth starting their double-ups. Saying that, I believe Sar's not playing for a few weeks, so that hurts a bit. Southeast Melbourne start their double-ups. Maybe I can look at getting Williams in and benching Humphrey for those games, that's potentially an option. It's something we've got to assess when it comes around. But obviously next week, as I mentioned, Cairns will be on the double, so I don't really want to move a McCall. Lamb won't have a double, so maybe I look at moving Lamb to a Williams for 2 weeks. Yeah, look, that's something I'll make next week. This week, we will look at captain options, and this week, it's a pretty hard captain options, in my opinion, because we have Tasmania playing twice against Illawarra and Brisbane, so Tasmanian players wouldn't be bad to chuck on the C. If you're still holding a Doyle or a Crawford, that's not the end of the world. In fact, I think Tasmania actually have 2 doubles in a row as well, do they? Nah, they don't. They only got the single double. So they've only got 1 double this week. I wouldn't go out of my way to bring them in. I think, as I mentioned, there's higher priority teams, but I do think Tasmanian players are probably the best captain choice. The next best one would be Sydney players. Sydney into Adelaide and New Zealand. That sounds so good. We know Hogue scores historically very well into New Zealand. Unfortunately, Hogue just ain't playing right now. So then the only other real Sydney option is Adams, and Adams did just burn us, and I hate it, but I think he's got to be the numero uno captain option going into Adelaide and New Zealand. There's a chance he tells them both up for 30 plus, if not 40 plus, and he ends up being the best captain option. We have New Zealand in the captain options. As I mentioned, Sydney are a high scoring team, so I wouldn't be surprised if Lamb or PJC had good scores in these rounds, but then they also have Melbourne, and that's going to be very hard to score on. We know Melbourne are a defensive lock, and I mean, Adams played them this week and dropped the 9. It's going to be very hard to choose anyone that's playing Melbourne this week, in my opinion. So that's why I haven't picked a New Zealand player. If I had to pick a New Zealand player, I would say go Lamb. I do think Lamb sometimes matches up on Golding. Golding, they try and get, I think, much better to get Travers down to Lamb, though. But Travers obviously didn't play this week, so obviously there's question marks over there. So Lamb still could be a shout, but just because of the matchup, I'm holding off on him. The other team on the double is Illawarra. Unfortunately, they're playing the 3-headed monster of Tasmania. They have Lee under that basket. They run Krislovich. They run Magne, making it very hard to pick Froling or Clark as captains, as they love to score under the baskets. They score in the paint, and Tasmania, they don't let you score in the paint. So I think very hard to choose one of them. And then they have Brisbane, who also have the 3-headed monster of Harrison, Baines, Rocco. They're a team that can be very good at stopping you from scoring in the paint, especially when Rocco's on the floor. That man is a block machine. So you can't pick an Illawarra player, because the 2 Illawarra players are Froling and Clark, and they're in-paint scorers versus teams that don't let you score in the paint. So you just can't pick them. And then, as I said, what does that really leave us with at that point? In my opinion, the best option sitting there, it's got to be Adams into Adelaide and New Zealand. It's just how it is. I mean, if you have Hogue, great. I wouldn't go out of my way to maybe bring him in. I wouldn't mind bringing Hogue in, but he does play 2 doubles over the next 3 rounds. Not too bad in reality, but look, that just not a fan of that. Just not a fan of making that play, especially because he's just missed a week with a shoulder soreness. You'd hate to bring him in and he gets managed and he doesn't play proper minutes. I think that's just too risky to go for. As I mentioned, better teams, better schedule. So that's what I would be looking at. Now I'm just going to make a quick moves with my team, because obviously we're not going to run McCall on a single. We will go for Kell on the double. Look, Adelaide is the other team on the double. Sydney, high-scoring team. Cairns do give up points as well, so if you wanted to roll the dice with an Adelaide player, that is a high-risk, high-reward situation. DJ could come out massive. You could have Wiley with a big game. Maybe Humphrey or Trey Kell come out with big games again. But they're so yin and yang, you'd hate to put it on Kell and he comes out with 2 15-point scores or something. You'd hate for Wiley to put out his 6 again in one of his doubles and then only get a 36 or something. It's too scary to do it with these Adelaide players. You got to have big cojones to jump on the Adelaide players' captains. But I will be moving Lamb on field. As I said, I'm not a fan of Froling or Clark as captain. I think Lamb's the better on-field option than one of them. I do think Clark is better outside scoring, so maybe he is a bit of a better option than Froling, who's going to have to rely on being in the paint against very defensive centers. So maybe we look at doing this, and then Clark ends up on like a Jack McVeigh, who I think he could be scoring on. So maybe we bench Froling, we get Clark on field, we get Lamb on field. Humphrey's got his doubles, and I'm fine to have him sitting there. Kell, a little bit more speculative, but he's there. Adams as the captain, it's not bad. Outside of this, we have 8 players playing on the doubles this week. It's just Menenga and McCall who aren't. Saying that, McCall's good enough to match players who play on doubles, and Menenga is honestly pretty consistent, and he's got money to make, so we'll just let him sit there. So yeah, that's how my team is looking going into this week, guys. First of all, just comment down below on how your team went. Call me out when you're going to beat me. Message me on Twitter. V Corey, tell me, hey, you're going down this week. I'm making the top 4 in your league. And then unfortunately just get bad RNG and lose. Sorry, Corey, I'll stop bringing that up. But anyway, yeah, thank you all for subscribing, staying towards the end of the video. I appreciate y'all, and I will catch you next time. Peace, later.